I kind of circle back to finding the abundance.
Mm-hmm.
Follow Christ, and then He'll help you find the abundance. And when you see a radical idea that the culture says, well, that's not normal. And for us, it was like, we don't do video game. We've never had a gaming system. We don't really have a TV. We chose to stop watching sports. And those seem kind of radical, probably kind of radical for some families. I think more and more people adopt that. It's like those have opened up the possibility for the abundant life to backfill, positively fill those spaces.
You are listening to the Famous at Home podcast with Dr. Josh and Christy Straub.
Because when it's all said and done, we all want to know that we were famous at home. Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. Today we're interviewing an amazing couple. They're friends of ours. They're also people that we look up to. Before we introduce them, here's a word from our sponsors. Hey everybody, Josh Straub here with Famous at Home. We want to introduce you to the Famous at Home Starter Bundle. This is something we created just for you. All you have to do is click the button to sign up to receive our workbook, 7 Decisions to Putting Your Family Center Stage. You'll also get a feelings chart handout that you can implement with your kids and with your spouse. And you'll also receive the 100 Commonly Held Values worksheet so that you can sit down with your family and discuss the values that you want to set as a family that will provide vision for how and you want to lead your family in the direction that you're going to head in. So you get those 3 things right away as soon as you sign up. In addition to that, we will send to you our top podcast episodes on marriage, parenting, and family, the most listened to and the most foundational for developing emotional connection with your loved ones. You'll also receive past newsletters, our exclusive weekly newsletter. You'll be enrolled to receive that on an ongoing basis. These are real-time newsletters of what's happening in our lives and what we're doing and implementing to be famous at home that we want to give to you, just weekly nuggets to keep us equipped every single week. And then you'll also receive the weekly podcast episodes as well. This starter bundle is all free. We want to give it to you. Just click the link to sign up. So today we have Mark and Tina Seago joining us. I met Mark a few years ago. He is a hospitalist here locally. So he's an MD and just an amazing, he's not just a doctor. He has a farm. They have a family of 7. And he's one of those dads that we joined together to start the men's group. For those of you who are new listening, we have a group of dads. There's 6 of us, and we started this group for our sons who are ages around 7 to 12, and we teaching them all kinds of things as it relates to building a fire, changing tires, cooking their own meal over the fire, you name it. We just would woodwork, cutting wood, all these things. We just wanted to teach our boys how to do these things well, and then build a group of dads that when my son is in his teenage years and he needs some advice, he has other dads in his world that he can look up to and who he can call that aren't just, he's not just relying on me. And this is a couple who you look at and you look at their children and you go, oh, wow, whatever you did with your kids, please, let us learn from you.
Yeah. Tina is just really one of those women I look up to. Her daughters, because now we have a group with the mothers. You'll hear us talk about it a little bit in the episode with the mothers and the daughters. And her daughters are exceptional. And I mean, their sons are exceptional as well. I just don't spend as much time with their sons. But this couple, when you find people like this and kids like this that are just such a quality, you just want to lean in and you just want to glean and it gives you such hope that you too can raise a family that feels and it'll look unique, but the hope is that could be this, just a glimpse of maybe what the Father intends for our families. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we're super excited for you to listen in to this interview with our friends, Mark and Tina Seago.
Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. Today we have our dear friends, Mark and Tina Seago, on with us. Mark and Tina, welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So Mark and Tina are in our lives. We've gotten to know them over the past maybe, I don't know, year and a half, especially more specifically. But again, as we were talking, these are families that we look at and we say, wow, like whatever you've done with your children, we want to do that. Like, let us soak up your wisdom. Let us soak what you've done. And so that's why we wanted to talk to you guys today and just get more of that wisdom and allow our family, our podcast family, to even hear, to get a sneak peek and insight into how you guys have done that. And so, Mark and Tina, I don't know who wants to go first, but would love for you to introduce a little bit about who you guys are and introduce your family to us.
I'm getting the elbow in the ribs. So well, we are just very blessed parents of 7 kids. Our oldest will soon be 26. Our first grandchild is on the way. He's married to a lovely Maddie. So Andrew and Maddie, our oldest 2 now. And then Ethan is our second oldest, 23. Ella's 21. We have a little gap. We have no idea why. We have a 5-year gap. Maybe we need to recuperate. I'm not sure. But Liam is 16. Emery is 15. Libby's 13. And Whit is 10. And very much the caboose. So, yeah. We have been in Columbia, Tennessee for about going on 22 years. And this is home. Raised in South Louisiana, but a new home in Tennessee. So,
Yeah. And you guys, so I'd love for you guys. So you guys have an amazing farm. You've got land. You're cultivating that land. You're teaching your kids how to do that. So Mark and I really started to get to know one another. As many of you know, we have this dad's group where we're teaching our boys. The boys named it Dirt and Iron, and it's one of these groups that we're trying to really just pour into our boys to teach them how to build fires and how to make dinner for themselves over the fire and go camping and canoeing and these sort of things and cut wood. And Mark is one of those dads who is part of this group, and their son Whit is friends with Landon. And the thing that I started to see as we started cultivating this group and is all of the ways that you guys chose to raise your kids and the decisions that you guys started to make. And what was really cool starting to talk with you, Mark, over the years is how you even started looking to your 20-something kids for advice on what you did right or wrong to raise the younger kids in that gap, right? And so I would love to just hear from you guys where some of this started. What was it like? Like, take us into your conversations, the two of you, as dad, as father, as mother, in terms of this is what we know to be true, and these are the decisions we want to make in raising our kids. Can you take us into some of those conversations and where you started making some of these decisions and even what some of those decisions are?
Even this morning, we were articulating or trying to articulate how different our older 3 were parented than our younger 3, with that 5-year gap. And I think the pivot points were, as we went through the years, there was an unsettledness that, as we examined the world around us, was what the culture was telling us was normal for a family. I think I mentioned this the other night. There was always a sense that there was something richer and more abundant that was possible than just falling into lockstep with the cultural norms. And that first kind of manifested itself with education and our decision to start a classical Christian school. And that journey has been a huge part of our family identity. And then moving to the farm has also been a pivot point, because it was more easier to see that the choices that were a part of how we establish the norms and the rhythms and the liturgies of our day were still very tied to what the world around us told us was normal. So just things that are common to every family now, sports programming, and how that tail begins to wag the dog of a family, that you just are orbiting around these cultural norms rather than letting your family be the source of identity and rhythms. And so the land was a big part of that. It's been an evolution. There's been many points where we go, oh my goodness, we learned something today that we didn't know yesterday, even though that was the case. And we did have that advantage of sitting Andrew, Ethan, and Ella, the three older kids, down and saying, how did we do? Or more rather, it was one of these, what are you going to do now that you've sat under our stewardship of the family? What did you learn? What took? What was not necessarily healthy? And those are good conversations, because they can begin to see that not only are we not perfect, we're not meant to be perfect. We reflect the identity of Christ. We are not their identity in Christ, and we can point them towards Him. I think the biggest reorientation that the land has given us is, I told Tina actually this morning, that the seasons of the year become alive in such a different way whenever you are tasked with stewarding a piece of land, and letting that set the rhythms of your family. Gardening, preparing for the winter, preparing for the spring. It's all the different things that become and you and I have talked about this, they become this, what do I put in place of the things that we tell our children to, that may not be good for them. If I look at them and say, or we look at them and say, you know what, the phone's probably not a good thing to be consumed with. And so they put the phone down. What is it going to backfill with? What is we're not going to sit and watch sports all weekend. Well, Dad, what are we going to do? And so that has challenged us to begin to examine our own competency with those things that can fill those spaces. Do we know how to garden? Do I know how to take care of a tree that's fallen down? Do I know how to take care of animals and keep them alive?
We have baby chicks hatching in our laundry room this morning.
Yeah, we had a new baby chicken to hatch this morning. So, and just being able to keep those things alive, because we've had a lot of things not be kept alive, unfortunately, and those are other great life lessons that happen organically on the farm. And so those have been some of the reorienting landmarks in our journey. We were blessed, given a rich community, that a lot of the things that I hear us longing for in the dirt and iron in the community there have been present in our lives. We just didn't have the terms for them. We didn't know that they were happening very organically, with God building community in this place in Columbia.
I love it. I like, just this weekend, Tina takes me out to the garden, this beautiful garden that you guys have. And, some of the girls came out there with us, and I've told you this before, Tina, but like, your children are such a testament to what you've poured into them, what you've asked of them. I think you guys have, and I want to ask you some of these questions, because truly, when you look at families and especially children like yours, and I don't want to use the word impressive because I know they're like, it's not trying to impress anyone. It's just, they are such standout children. They are so different than the norm of the world, and they're exceptional, and they're lovely to be around. And one of their older daughters, is running this camp in the summers for all, a lot of our littles go, going to these day camps. And there's such a different mentality, I think, with your kids it's influenced our kids. Our Kennedy looks so up to your girls, Libby and Ella specifically. Like, it's like she sees them as like, I could be like them. And it's just the most, like, as a parent, it's so reassuring, honestly, to see that. I think a lot of the messages are like, look at the kids these days, like as if this is, dire circumstances. And, we're kind of stuck with the current, world that we're in. And I've watched your family lead from the front. And I love what you've said too. It's organic. It's not like you set out to do this certain way. I think, it's following the Spirit of God and the leading of the Father, and to watch it in your family has been so encouraging to my heart and to our family. So I just want to say thank you. And I know we've said some of these things, but that's why we wanted to just have this conversation too, where other people could listen to it, because I don't know that a lot of people have those models around them. And I pray that even those listening can hear this, like, just to look for those, Josh calls it a glimpse, people that have just like a glimpse of the Father in them, where it's like, oh, there's something so interesting about them. It's a little different. And I want to lean in and to look for those families around you, because they're there. And it has rewarded our lives so much to just have a glimpse of yours. So thank you for that.
Mm.
And
Those
I
are
also
very, very kind words.
I mean it truly. But can you talk a little bit too, just even about parenting, like how you have parented the kids? I know you've talked a little bit about the changes, you've made between the front 3 and the back 4. But
phase 1 and phase 2.
Phase 1 and 2. Like, what are some of the shifts? Like, practically, what does that look like? Because I feel like, even, our gap between, Landon and Kennedy, and then we have that 5-year gap with Kennedy and Micah. And I mean, I feel like in a lot of ways, we're entirely different people that are raising Micah. Whether that will be for the better or the worse, I don't know, because I feel like he gets away with a whole lot more. But like, what were some of those big shifts for you?
Well, I think initially, whenever we had one child was a lot. And then 2 came along, and we thought, wow, how are we going to parent 2? And then the 3rd, and so forth. And each time I think that God gives you what you need only when you need it, and not a moment sooner, but it's never too late. It's always right on time. And so I feel like with each child, we were given what we needed to parent and to shepherd that child. And I think that we keep using the word organic, but I really do feel like that's the best descriptor, because the way that Andrew needed to be shepherded really helped us to know how to do the same for Ethan, though he was a very different child and had very different needs and so forth. And so I think that part of it has been very organic. And Mark and I said not long ago that really we don't have parenting wisdom. We know what mistakes have been that we've made, and we try to avoid those going forward each time. And so I think that some of as far as there's no formula, we don't know it anyway, but we obviously, first and foremost, as Mark mentioned, just a constant reminder to our children that their identity is nowhere but in Christ. It is a verbal thing that we have to say to them over and again. when disappointments come. Your identity is not in that airsoft game that you're missing. So, no more fretting about that. Let's move on.
Or big things, like your identity is not your ACT score or your, where you get into college or where you don't get into college. I think that realization and how, you hear about it growing up, that your identity's in Christ. We grew up.
But what does that mean, really?
Yeah, when the tension comes between the world sourcing their identity, which is one of the biggest challenges for parents right now, is what's the identity sourcing?
Yeah.
Whatever you do, and I think Tina hinted at it. There's not a formula. Well, there's only one box to check, and that's point them to Christ. And then the rest of it is downstream of that. Whatever mistakes you made, whatever successes you have, when that one has taken hold in their hearts and who they are in Christ, the rest of it is I kind of circle back to finding the abundance.
Mm-hmm.
Follow Christ, and then He'll help you find the abundance. And when you see a radical idea that the culture says, well, that's not normal. And for us, it was like, we don't do video game. We've never had a gaming system. We don't really have a TV. We chose to stop watching sports. And those seem kind of radical, probably kind of radical for some families. I think more and more people adopt that. It's like those have opened up the possibility for the abundant life to backfill, positively fill those spaces. So.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get more specific into the daily rhythms and some of these decisions for no video games, TV, and how that shaped the Seagos' lives. So we'll be right back. Hey everybody, Josh Straub here with Famous at Home. I want to introduce you to something if you haven't already seen it. This is our new book, Famous at Home, 7 Decisions to Putting Your Family Center Stage in a World Competing for Your Time, Attention, and Identity. When a couple or a family comes to us and says, hey, Josh, we have a question. What do we do next? We always point to this book. This is our coaching playbook. This is the play-by-play strategies that we use to help families to be famous at home. And so if you have not picked up this book yet, we highly encourage you to get a copy. You can see a link in the show notes. You can click a link right here in the video, and we would love for you to be able to get a copy of this in your hands. If you want to go deeper than the podcast episodes, this is the way to do that. It's our way of walking alongside your family to help you be famous at home. Okay, so I want to jump into some more of that, Mark, because I think it's really important for, you and I were talking about this the other night, how we grew up, the thing that really connected my dad and I, and this is the Western cultural mindset, right? So, this is, I think all of us, well, I know all of us, most of you listening grew up in a Western cultural mindset. We've been embraced in it, and it's just the nature of you can't separate yourself from it. You have to be conscious enough to separate yourself from it. And for me, growing up, the big thing that my dad and I had a connection on was sports, and we would do that in the weekends, and that was our relationship. And we were talking about that the other night, how that was, ingrained into us. And then we were talking to his dads about what are some other shifts we want to make so that our boys are raised differently. That's not just necessarily the cultural norm. Not that there's anything wrong with watching sports, but what if there was, if that's all we're doing on the weekend and that's what our lives are built around? I would love for you to just talk a little bit about that and some of the decisions that you guys made as it related to where did you all of a sudden be awakened to this, to go, oh man, how can we, this isn't giving us as much life in our family as we would like. And because these are conscious decisions that need to be made.
And they're big. Those are big decisions.
They're big decisions because you're breaking yourself free from the cultural influences that we are a part of. And for your family in particular, you guys said, hey, we believe these decisions are going to bring more life to our family. Can you just take us into some of those and where that came alive for you guys and kind of, what you replaced it with even?
We got chickens.
COVID helped, ironically.
I know. I was hoping that we wouldn't have to say the C word, but I think that
She loves talking about COVID.
COVID's not my favorite topic. But I think during that time, it was really an awakening for a lot of people. I mean, we were no exception to just how it changed our view of things. But sports were literally taken away from our family. And we, I think, realized we didn't miss it all that much. And so that was one aspect of that shift. Literally, games stopped being played. And so there was not the normal big tournaments and so forth they just weren't on TV. And so we weren't drawn to it. And we literally went to the farm store and got baby chicks. And it was just a great season for us to do that, because I'm the one who refused to do it initially, just because I know they go off to school and work, and so who's going to tend to the animals? Well, that would be me. And so I kind of balked at that thought initially, but we were all home, and it was the perfect time, and it was just we just had the realization that we could shift into that.
Yeah, and she's touching on what I have most been in. It's an intimidation as a parent to step into a new thing that you have no skills to do, and I've often challenged my kids, and I've had the privilege of teaching some in the school, and I challenge the kids in the class, like, what are you good at? When you leave school today, what are you going to be doing? What are you practicing in your hours after school? And I kind of come head on and say, I imagine many of you are good at texting, surfing the internet, watching videos, looking at YouTube, all the other social media platforms. What are you good at? Or video games or whatever. And I say, well, those things aren't. I don't think we've been careful to try to cultivate in our children that those things aren't evil. They're not inherently bad. I think they can bump up against things that are, but they're not necessarily in and of themselves bad. But what have they taken the place of? What are you displacing by becoming very good at these things? What are you not good at? And then a parent, whenever we say, okay, well, we're going to be good at fill in the blank. We're going to be good at woodworking or learning how to take care of chickens that were so intimidating at the front end. And
chickens are easy, by the way. Yeah. They are the easiest of all of our animals.
Absolutely. We're going to get sheep. Oh my goodness. How do we keep this?
I said no to sheep, and they are my favorite.
They are so cute. You pull up to the property, and there's just these like grazing sheep on the lawn. Like, it's so precious.
Yeah, those grazing sheep also eat my petunias on the front porch. And
you learn so much. But that knowledge infrastructure that has been lost, the multi-generational just currents of our culture has pulled us away from those things that would have been commonplace in families 2 or 3 generations back. We're scared of them because we don't want to. I always was. I don't want to have my son at my side out in the shop trying to teach him something, and then he sees that I have no idea what I'm doing. And getting over that and becoming comfortable with not only making mistakes in front of them, but letting them make mistakes, and not being patient and organic with walking beside them and learning a new skill. Like we love our bees now, but my kids have watched me make so many mistakes with tending the bees, and they learn. Like Emery is better at it than I am now, which is great.
Here or there.
Yeah. But I think it's given us opportunity to take on that posture of humility and imperfection. Tina's heard me say before that some of my favorite conversations, in particular with my my older ones, because I was personally parented harder then, was apologizing to them and saying, I messed up when I spoke to you that way. Um, and, and letting them see what's at work in that interaction, that I'm trying to, I myself am trying to be more like Christ, and I'm going to mess up. We're going to mess up at trying to be like Christ. And we're trying to shepherd your hearts towards him, not towards us, but towards him. So those have been some of the eye-opening key revelations for us as parents.
And you guys aren't going to say this today on the podcast, so I will. I think one of the most significant character traits, and we've been talking to you long enough now that if you're listening, you can hear it, you can pick it up, is the humility that you guys carry. And you guys carry a humility. It's humility, but within your humility is you give us a charge. You give us, and that charge is permission. You give us permission through your humility to make mistakes, but how to make it right when we mess it up. And I'm sure that's not just, with woodworking and keeping bees and all those other things in competency things, but also in how you speak to, treat the kids and that type of thing, where you guys are modeling for them what it looks like for you to be a son and daughter and your identity being in Christ. And I think for those of you listening, like for me, this is one of the greatest challenges, whether you choose to do sports, whether you choose to have a farm, whatever it is, that we're constantly challenging ourselves to try new things and to also enter into our kids' lives in a way that we're okay to make mistakes. And we don't have to be the puffed up, like, don't speak to me that way. Don't act like, yeah, of course there's discipline, but it's this sense of, oh, I also spoke to you in a way I shouldn't have. It's, I need to go to Jesus for forgiveness. And you guys embody that and you carry that. And you wouldn't admit that, which is why I'm talking about it and highlighting it, because I think it just flows through who you are and the decisions that you make. I would love for you guys to also...
Can I add to that real quick?
Ahead.
But what I've seen is the respect your children have for you because of it. Like the relationships you have, it's not this authoritarian or even like, I think you've been very authoritative, like you're authoritative, but it's garnered such a respect from your kids. They're respectful, like they're full of respect. But I think that's because they've been shepherded so, I don't want to say gently, like as if you were like, but like just like nurtured. They've been nurtured. They've been corrected, but they've, with that correction has not come this condemnation or shame. It's like they know who they are and therefore, and they respect you for it. Like that there's this beautiful, what's the term where it's like there's this like relationship but goes both ways,
symbiotic.
Yeah, good word. Only a doctor would say something like that. Yes, but it is this interdependent, symbiotic. Like it's this back and forth. I think so often, at least for me, I think I came into parenthood feeling like you had to be this like, you are the parent, they are the child, and it just put so much on your shoulders. Like you had to be, like you're saying, Mark, like the authority or the wise one or the knowledgeable source. And what I've watched with you, like you guys, you lean on your kids and they rise to the task. Like we did a tea party. Tina and her girls hosted a tea party. So we have the girls' side now. I don't know if we talked about this. Which the moms and the daughters have formed our own group, mostly because the daughters were so jealous that the boys were getting to do dirt and iron. And like,
just the daughters.
What?
I'm not sure it was just the daughters.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually very true. And so we started the moms and daughters group, and the girls named it Grit and Gold. and which I love. And so it's, we have a bit of an age range as well of our daughters, but it's been so sweet. And what we've found, I think, so interesting, Tina, is as we've been talking about what this group is, it's been this nurturing of what womanhood is and what it is to be a girl being grown into a young woman. And because the girls wanted to make fires and shoot guns and all that. And we were like, that's cool. That's really great too. But there's also this unique thing that you are called to as a woman that God has created you for. And we need to shepherd that in you, which society is not saying, and is casting to the side. And so we've done, Tina and the girls hosted a tea party, but to watch the way, though, especially with Ella, her older daughter, she was the one serving and leading and teaching these little girls, just modeling for them how to be. And these little girls are just sort of, getting to put on this little tea party and set the table and invite the moms to the party and decorate and all those things that it was just such a sweet moment. But to see the older ones now being tasked to lead is just so encouraging, because you realize you're not it. You're not the be all and end all. And that's what I've seen in you too, is just this humility is absolutely 100% the word. But it's with such strength, because there's this, you've made a family team is really what you've done. And now the team is working. And so you're not alone in it. It's not like you're just the two, leading the charge and taking all the weight. The whole team works together, and it's just been, it's really neat to watch.
Would you guys take us into some of the daily rhythms that you decided to implement through the years that you look back on, or maybe they're newer and they're today, but the daily rhythms, daily choices you guys made that, and maybe there were some weekly rhythms that are in there as well, that you look back on and go, these were significant. I wouldn't give this rhythm up for anything. This rhythm is what shaped a lot of who our kids are today.
I know Mark probably has a lot to say about this, but I would say the most significant thing that we do was something that both of us had growing up, and that is dinner as a family as often as we can all be around the table. As you guys know, evenings can become there's just such a dispersion that kids are everywhere. When we're all here, it doesn't matter if we're all here. Whoever is here, we try to have dinner around the table, and that is our best time of conversation. You can pull things out of those kids because they don't have a distraction in front of them. They're just sitting and eating. It's very much different if you were at a restaurant or, but the table at home, our table is round for that reason, because it's the best shape to be able to look at one another in the face and talk to each other. So,
and you get some of that multi-generational, we kind of consider the older three another generation from the younger four, but they are soaking in what the older ones are saying, and vice versa. The older three love to experience and hear about what's happening in the lives of the younger four. I think one of the other, when we began to intentionally say no to some things, and then we had this big void that we're like, oh my goodness, we said no to TV or
travel soccer,
whatever. What are we going to fill it with? And that was when we examined what are we good at, what are we competent at to propagate in our children. Well, books became a default because it was easy. We knew books. With kids' education, classical education, books are a big deal, and so that has been a rhythm. So we read, especially during the school year, more nights than not. That's kind of the nightcap. So before they go to bed, we've read Lord of the Rings out loud twice. We've read Wind in the Willows.
I'm going to interrupt just a second. This is a papa and kid thing, because this is when I exit stage left and go do what I need to do. And Mark sits in the living room with the children, and they are just enamored and totally engrossed in whatever Mark is reading. And I love to peek in or sit for a bit, or I have no idea what's going on in the stories because I haven't been there for all of it. But since all of our kids have been little bitty, it's very much a teaching tool as well, because as he's going along and the words aren't quite to their level, he'll say, well, what does that word mean? And they will give their best guess. And so this has been happening the entire life of our children. And I think that is one of it's a liturgy for our family, really. And I think that is one thing that has really built something up special in our children.
Wow.
And it's cultivated in them their own independent love. I mean, it's funny to have to come into the house and go, all right, put the books down. I need you to go do what we asked you to do. Neglecting other things, and it kind of rattles your cage. It's like, okay, well, I'm glad I'm having to pull them away from the books.
We have had to cut them off of Calvin and Hobbes before.
Oh yeah, comics have been a liturgy.
Our kids haven't gotten into that. That's Landon. Like Landon,
they do read deeper
too.
things. But
What's that, Tina?
I said they do read deeper texts, but it's candy for them in the morning.
Over morning candy is
breakfast.
Calvin and Hobbes, Far Side. And it's for good or bad shaped some of their humor.
That's
funny. Awesome.
Comes to the service.
That's awesome.
I've been finding that lately too, where I have to, if we go on long car trips, Landon's bringing books, and I'm trying to get him to look out the window, and I'm trying to have a conversation with him, and he's engrossed in a book. And I had this internal thought of like, can we talk? Can you look out the window? Can we? But then I'm thinking, man, he's reading a book and he's not on a screen. So like, where's you're trying to weigh,
Where's the balance?
Yeah.
I think the other big rhythms and liturgies, when we learned the term liturgy, means the work of the people, and every family has liturgies. They either recognize them or they don't recognize them. So when these things were coming into our minds more intentionally, happened close to the time when we moved to the farm, and so all these streams converged at once. Becoming aware of these things, having land to take care of, being intimidated by things that we didn't know. And as parents, I think we just, at some point, we just kind of jump into it, lean into it,
And with some intentionality as well, like animal husbandry was very much something that we really lacked growing up, and something that was really pressed upon Mark's heart, specifically to give the children that gift of animal husbandry. And it's not only in caring for an animal, but it's also what happens in the life cycle of an animal, because we've buried a lot of chickens that have names, rabbits, cats. We've had to experience some hard losses, as well as glorious births. Not long ago, maybe within the last 2 weeks, a baby bird fell from the top of our column on our front porch, and it was too young to survive. And at that same day, a baby turkey had hatched from an incubator in our laundry room. And Whit, our youngest, pointed out that God had replaced death with new life. And I don't know that would be a natural observation had he not experienced the life cycle of so many things on this farm.
And I think the rhythms of long view rhythm. So we having the farm, trees are down all the time, but one of our loves of winter is sitting in front of the fire. We have a wood fired traditional fireplace, and so when we have a tree fall down, and all of us actually get out there. We're a very good tree crew. We're for hire if anyone needs some tree crew. The ship.
We're never available.
And you can't afford us. But otherwise, but the shift went away from, this is a burdensome, toilsome task to, it's funny, I was talking with Liam the other day. We passed the wood pile. We have this grand stack of seasoned oak now. And we both went, that's going to be really good for next winter.
Wow.
And that's a long view rhythm. That's what we're doing in the summer is now going to enrich and enhance we love. That's where we read.
I mean, if it is 60 degrees outside, they want a fire. So
it's
a little
favorite
chilly.
thing is to read by the fire in the evening or early morning. So it's great when there's still coals from the night before and they just have to lay a log on top.
But that's the organic, what trees are good for your fireplace. Just all the organic unfolding of learning that happens with something that simple is amazing. It just always amazes me that there's so many nuances to what the complexity of the world God created that he wants us to enjoy. And how do you enjoy it? I tell you, the other rhythm, Tina hasn't mentioned it, but the kitchen rhythm, food, passing on skills to, I've heard in our meetings recently, Josh, you've been talking about radical hospitality. Making yourself competent to step into radical hospitality almost necessarily requires confidence in the kitchen. Tina's, as you've experienced some, Tina's got a lot of that, and she's passing that on to our children. So,
and equally as important as being able to cook food is being able to clean up after yourselves.
Oh yeah.
And so that is one of our daily part of our daily rhythm is that they just cover the kitchen after dinner, and they get it clean. But one thing I would like to just add that was on my mind as we were talking a bit ago about liturgies. So a few years ago, we just had this epiphany. The kids were kind of complaining a bit about having to go out into the barn and do the animals. They are on a rotational basis. So whoever had the day.
Whose day is it, by the way? I think we've actually.
The animals are not out yet.
They are not out yet.
They get cooped at night to protect them, so we haven't let them out yet. What is today? Tuesday.
It's Tuesday, yes.
We're not sure whose day it is, but they'll be up shortly.
It's summer.
It is summer.
That does not matter around here.
Animals don't.
Ask the papa. The farmhand. Ask the farmhand. So what I was going to say is we talked about, specifically remember that day, talking about liturgies, and that it is a liturgy to go and uncoop the birds. And for that time that can very, very much be a time of communication and building relationship with the Lord, because it's something that they have to do. They can be very intentional about their thoughts as how they're going about the task. And is it a task that is one that is burdensome, or is it a task of privilege? And it's very much a task of privilege. And not only that, but without the kids doing what they do for these animals, they will die. And so something that's living is very dependent upon them. And so liturgy is a very serious term in our house because it does mean a time of building relationship.
It's so good. I love that.
And can I say one thing? Mark, you use the term backfill. Like what's going to backfill? Like when you clear out some of the modern distractions, I guess, fillers, what backfills? And I thought that's such a rich term, but what I'm hearing, it's like responsibility backfills. Like that weight of like something actually life or death is depending on you. That's a weighty, but how significant for a child to feel that significant. I think our kids don't feel significant. They don't feel like, I mean, it's like, so yeah, we'll just like watch a show or play a video game, but to actually feel the weight of their significance and how that speaks to just the Father's view of them, like how significant their life is, how essential they are, what worth that gives to a child. I just never thought of it in that way, but like how that responsibility actually gives them dignity. Like that's rich.
Yeah. I was thinking about just as we make some of these decisions, because for a lot of us, it's hard. We don't live on farms, or we don't, we currently live in a neighborhood, and we're looking for ways to, help our kids cultivate new rhythms and new liturgies in our home. And I mean, we've adopted a lot of what you guys have done. I'm reading the kids at nighttime, and that's become.
And can I just say, Tina, thank you so much for saying that you're not a part of it, because by the end of the day, I am just like, Josh is like, let's all get together and read. I'm like, I've been with them literally all day. That is actually the last thing I want to do. But then I feel really bad because they're having this sweet moment and they've been reading Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh,
and same thing. I don't actually know all the stories because I just like pop in and I hear bits. But it's really precious to watch, but I really don't want to be a part of it.
I think you just gave Christy good permission.
You just gave me so much permission. Thank you so much.
I'm thinking for
real,
What's that?
Just keeping it real.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
I'm just thinking, what's one thing that we can all do? Because we have, and I love what you said about even the wood and the wood stacking and playing the long game and thinking about just even how long-term liturgies are so important. And I think to make this practical as we close, for all of us, for me, I'm going to ask you guys the question, what is the one thing maybe challenging you right now, or the one thing that you ran into when you did start making some of these decisions that you were like, this was a challenge, but I overcame this challenge by just simply doing X? Because what I want to leave families with today is what is that lowest hanging fruit where they can just begin, where they feel the tension of maybe the weight of the world coming, the Western culture influencing how they're raising their kids. And I've noticed for us is that over the years, we just make one decision, and then all of a sudden that decision starts to stick, like reading a book at night. And then all of a sudden it's like, man, it took a while to sustain that, but we just made a commitment that we're going to sustain it. We're going to do it. We're going to keep doing it. And then it just becomes, like you said, it just becomes liturgy. What is that one, I'm trying to think of that. I'm going to leave the listener with that. What is that one low hanging fruit that, man, this is really stealing time away from my relationship with my kids? It could be, we just need to start having dinner every night as a family. We need to start teaching our kids how to cook and get in the kitchen more. We need to get them on kitchen patrol and get them cleaning up after themselves, or that type of thing. I would just love for you guys to encourage everybody listening, encourage that person right now with that next step.
I do have a thought on this. I hope that you maybe have a better thought, but I think that mutual respect is a very important factor in raising our children in particular. So I think that giving them responsibilities is a key thing in helping our family just work. Our 16-year-old does his own laundry. Full stop. His laundry never hits a basket with anybody else's. But responsibilities can be so different and look so different. But I think giving your kid a task is an important thing, but it's not an order. It's a mutual respect of where they live and how we live here. And please and thank you is just as important with your 3-year-old as it is with your 15-year-old, as it is with your 26-year-old. Mutually respecting someone, I think, is a reflection of kindness, and being kind to one another is extremely important within a family. You may have a child that is very kind to everyone outside their family, but being kind to people inside your family might be challenging, which it seems like it would be the opposite, but you know that is kind of how it works. And so responsibility with mutual respect and building kindness, and all of this, of course, is in the name of Christ, because that is the key to kindness.
Yeah, I think this fits with what you're saying. Cultivating. We talked about what is the low-hanging fruit, and I think we touched on some of it. But cultivating gratitude and perspective. Because as parents, when we try to step into a foreign space of something we don't know how to do or whatever, it's easy to get frustrated and then let that spill out onto your kids. And so have sort of checking your own perspective about not letting that frustration dominate the moment. Don't get impatient or just kind of rip it out of their hands because you want to get it done quickly. And then just having that heart of gratitude towards just the richness of the because we live in such an affluent society, it's easy to become have a sense of entitlement that these things are owed to us, and we don't have time to explore this now, but having taken 2 of my kids over to Kenya, rocked their world, that just to see what they have relative to people on the other side of the planet. That perspective check is a daily liturgy. It really is. Don't feel sorry for yourself. And I think the corollary to that is the work becomes very, very satisfying to them. It's for its own sake. There's a sense of accomplishment with a good pile of well cut wood. I don't have to point that out to them. We walk away from stacking the wood, and Liam and Emery and Whit you can just see the sense of satisfaction in their eyes and in their mannerisms. So my encouragement would be, go for it. Pick 1 or 2 things, new liturgies, the ones you need to be doing. Don't be intimidated by them. Go for it, and trust the process. That's another term Tina probably gets tired of me saying.
I love it.
Trust the process. When you've experienced it yourself, or when someone you respect and as a mentor says, this is going to work, and the first 10 times you do it, it doesn't work. Like reading, for example, she made it seem like it was an easy thing. It wasn't an easy thing. Getting that rhythm, resetting the rhythms of the family so that we can sit down every night and read. It's worth it. Trust that process.
So good.
That is so good. Guys, thank you so much for taking time today out of your schedules to be with us and giving us your wisdom.
Being with you guys.
We got to go let the birds out. So,
what's that, Mark?
I said we've got to go let the birds out, so we've got to sign off.
Yeah. He's gone all soft this morning. He's not getting the kids up at 6 a.m. to do the animal.
I love it.
He's showing off.
Yeah. He's being all laid back, and as soon as we're done, he'll be like, "Kids, everybody!"
That's up. Right. This is great restraint. He's holding me down.
I am. See,
I love it. Well,
thank you guys.
Yes,
truly.
thank you. And to see the love that you have for each other is remarkable as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see them just cuddled up and holding hands. And I think
in front of all their books,
that marital relationship is just we didn't really touch on your marriage, but just seeing the two of you, the way you look at each other, the way you still love each other, like just deeply. I mean, that in and of itself flows down into our kids. And so just thank you for being an example to each of us. And as we close, the thing I want to just encourage is if you see other families who are carrying a glimpse like the Seagos do, don't hesitate to ask them questions and invite them to dinner and or coffee, and just sit under their tutelage and just learn as much as you can from them. And that's the gift that you have been to us. And so we just thank you for your friendship. For those of you listening, keep in mind that until next week, the greatest red carpet you will walk is through your front door.
keep being famous at home.